how to think about GDPR and why it happened. So when you think about like privacy laws, and I know it sounds boring, but in general, when you think about it, why it happened because like hundreds years ago, we didn't have this problem that someone can know something that we don't want to know, right? Like 8050s, 7050s, what about your privacy could happen wrong? Possibly someone coming to your house and stealing something, that's a trespass. Then the other side, someone, I don't know, drawing you in very unfavorable way. What's the worst what can happen? What's the worst of what can happen now, right? We have so many informations about us over the internet that basically making any misuse of that, it's something that can really cause harm. So it will be a bit about privacy and a bit about cold email, just to give you the understanding, because I think that to be successful when it comes to legal aspects of cold emailing, regardless from where you are, it's to keep it reasonable and not to panic, because there is a lot of panic mode in the whole story. So, cold emailing is illegal, la la la, and stuff like this, as if with GDPR, European Commission sat together and said, let's do the most powerful act in the history of the modern world about cold emailing. Well, they didn't. Sorry, but it's not a story about us, and it's not like cold emailing is not important enough. But looking from the perspective of, cases like Cambridge Analytica and stuff, we are not that much fancy to be the main subject. So if you do come and find something in the act of GDPR, you will not find a word cold emailing. So that's a good starting point to think when someone says that cold emailing is illegal, or after GDPR you can't send cold emails, is like, from where you have taken this one? I mean, in this act is no single word about cold emailing. There is one recital that says about direct marketing. But it's, first of all, recital, not a paragraph, and recitals are the thing that say if you have doubts, think this way, and if you don't have, think the other, but there is no actual enforcement power. So the benchmark is, it's not a story about us. No one sat in the European Commission or any other country in the world actually saying, let's do a legal act about cold emails. A bit not true for the states where we have Can Spam Act, but that's a different story. But in general, there is no law in the world that says doing precisely this is illegal, because cold emailing is not a crime. So that would be ridiculous to think about it this way. And I'm stressing this quite strongly because after GDPR, there was a lot of interpretation saying that you can't send cold emails, you can't do cold calling, you can't do this and can't do that. Well, you can if you do it legally. It's very similar with anything in the world that you actually do. So, but the opposite of that is saying that there are no legal regulation on cold emailing, because this is not true. If you look at it from a very logical perspective, like 100% of our actions, regardless of what you do, is regulated by law. It doesn't matter if you like it or not, but this is the truth. So, even the way we speak is regulated by law, because you cannot offend someone, you cannot harm anyone's feelings and stuff like this. This is very similar with cold emails. There are laws, they differ from country to country. I'll talk about it a bit more. But in general, there are some regulations, but you need to be able to pick from the stuffs and decide what is relevant. So let's start with the GDPR, and that's a bit tricky because, why we should care about European legislation if we are from all over the world and stuff like this. But first things first. GDPR is European law, 2018, the big come out of the thing, and after that the world started to follow a bit. So we had GDPR, that was the biggest and newest legislation actually in the world about privacy laws and anything that is related to new technologies. Then we had, for example, law from the New Zealand, 2020, December. Then we had Brazilian law coming after. Then we had many, even European countries putting harsher decisions on the privacy law, California Consumer Privacy Act, and many others around the world. So in general, GDPR was kind of like this breakdown that, guys, what we have, it's kind of old. Maybe we'll try to figure something, more up to date. Personally, it's difficult to catch up with any technology branch for law. well, it's impossible actually, because if you know how the process of making law looks like, it's like a bunch of guys sitting thinking, bunch of guys sitting thinking with other guys, let's draft something, let's ask hundreds of people about opinion, let's come back, I disagree, okay, we start from the end. Few years after, we have the final draft, but the world has changed. So, kind of because of that, European Commission wanted to get something very, very abstract, so they get kind of covered that when we are done with our work, it more or less fits to the reality. Because if you get too precise, you know, they will make a law about CDs, but no one uses it anymore. So just, you know, it's kind of, they kind of try to defend themselves. That's why they came with regulation. Because with EU, they do different types of laws. They do directives, regulations, supplementary laws, whatever else they can. And regulation is the type that when they publish it, it gets implemented in any country. Country can do a bit of their work, but they cannot overcome anyhow the general meaning of the regulation and stuff. So that's why they chose this one. So what they did, and that's kind of the issue that I think we all have with the GDPR itself, that they did very generic law saying about some principles and obligations without giving any detailed instructions. This is good and bad. Why it's good? Because you have some space to interpret it yourself. If someone gives you exact list of steps that you have to do it. If someone gives you some guidelines and general notions of understanding, then you have a bit of space to move around. Bad side of this kind of legislation, panic. My goodness, panic everywhere. I remember those kind of funny that just before the enactment, all IT industry was like freaking out. Like I thought that at some point someone would say internet is illegal now, because it's kind of how it sounds. Yeah, but that was a game changer. And regardless if you like it or not, if you feel it's stupid or not, well, that was the biggest boom. And at some point for like year and a half, the whole world was talking just about it from the privacy perspective. So it's a bit difficult to ignore.